Hello and welcome to this bonus episode of the 1912 Exiles podcast, the original, the biggest, the best Newport County podcast made by the fans for the fans, brought to you by the Terrace Podcast Network and with the support of the Riverside Sports Bar, the home of sport in Newport. I'm Ed, and like many of you, I was disappointed at the postponement of today's match against Morecambe. It sounds from the club statement as though they were also very disappointed by that late postponement on a pitch that mostly looked playable to many of us, but there we are. Anyway, we know that you are now left bereft with a Sunday afternoon with no football to watch, so we thought we would do our bit by bringing you some bonus content. A few months ago, we recorded a pub discussion on holiday about things from football past that we would bring back and things from football current, which we think are an improvement to the game. And we've just kept it sat to one side for exactly a scenario like this one. So without further ado, let's pitch to that clip, and I hope that that gives you something to do on this rainy and damp afternoon, and we will be back with a proper episode in due course. But yes, sit back, make yourselves a cup of tea, and enjoy this little bonus listen.
Let's go!
So a bit of scene setting. It is mid-November. We are sat in a nice bar next to the sea in Larnaca in Cyprus. The weather is, 24, 25 degrees, something like that. And around the table we've got various pod alumni. Let's see who's been on the pod. AFC Wimbledon Rob is sat around. Worcester Rob. Reese, who you all know. We've got Dino and Simon, who've both been on the pod before. We've got Ziggy, who hasn't been on the pod but is a benefactor to the pod. And we've got Paul. I'm not sure everyone has got stuff to contribute to this, but we're going to talk about things from football past that we would bring back and things from football current that we think have made football better. And I'm not sure everyone's going to contribute to things, or indeed some people will contribute at all. But let's see what happens and see where the magic takes us. So, Reese, I'm going to pass to you first as the pod OG. What have you brought to the table?
So, the thing that I think we should bring back is changing kits every other season, just to get some life. They're so expensive now, kits, and it is just a model for money grabbing, isn't it? And also just completely do away with 4th and 5th special edition because it's a Wednesday night kit. Get rid of all those. But what I think we've definitely got right, and I'm probably stealing someone else's chips for later on, is pitches. Like, we don't need to go back to the days where they're playing in a mud pile, even 10 years ago to Rodney Parade, but even at the highest levels, those awful pitches that they used to play on, it's not conducive to good and entertaining football. So those are my proposals in making football better.
Do you not have any sympathy for the argument that the cruddy, muddy pitches of yore were a great leveller? Do you not think back to some of County's recent cup successes and think that was made easier by the pitch at Rodney Parade being a complete pudding?
Maybe it was, but also the players from those higher divisions were a lot fitter and stronger anyway, so the energy drain of playing on a pudding is probably greater for our players than theirs. And we didn't play with the ball on the floor anyway, so the pitch didn't really level anything.
Fair enough. Well, we've got two strong contenders to kick us off. Now, Rob, just before I hit record, you said, I've got thoughts on this, which didn't surprise me at all. You are an old football curmudgeon in a young man's body. So, what have you brought?
Piss walls.
The piss wall. So, for those who are not familiar with the concept of the piss wall, explain the piss wall and then justify the piss wall.
So it's exactly what it What it sounds like, really. It's a wall that, when you go to the football, it's just a brick wall that you stand next to and piss against. And there was the toilet facilities, at least in one part of the ground, probably not the grandstand, but where all of the real football men used to go and watch football, there used to just be a brick wall behind the stand, and used to go and piss against that. And that was, formative for anyone growing up doing that kind of thing.
I recently had a piss by what I think is the example of the great piss wall at Merthyr Town, Penydarren Park, a ground I know is very close to your heart, having been... Were you there for the Atalanta game, is that right?
I was not there for the Atalanta game, but I was there when they won promotion to what was then the Vauxhall Conference against Dartford, I think, when they won 2-1. And I've seen him play... I haven't seen him play in Europe, but yeah, I was there in the late 80s. I've pissed against that very piss wall, Ed, so...
Well, it is the best piss wall that I've ever been to, and I've been to a few, because it's open air, it's at the back of the terrace, so you literally duck behind a wall, have a slash, you can hear what's going on still in the game, and you miss at most 30 seconds worth of action. No kind of hand cleaning facilities or anything. It is, as you say, just a bare wall with a drain along the bottom. And I also feel like at Rodney Parade, the gents' toilets when we first moved in were a black painted piss wall, and now they've got, nice bright stainless steel in them, and that is progress. But the game has gone.
I do have a serious answer to what should be brought back, and that's the knockout format of the Champions League and the UEFA Cup.
Good job.
If there's loads of grumbling and whining about players playing too many games, one idea might be to play fewer games. And one thing you could do is remove the games in Europe. They're not going to do that, obviously, because that's where the money gets generated. But bringing back the knockout format, probably going to significantly reduce the load on players. I bring back that. Not necessarily the Cup Winners' Cup though, because I think the Conference League probably does something similar. But the Europa League needs to be the UEFA Cup again.
We're going to pass over to Worcester Rob, who's desperate to jump in with a comment.
But this is the first season of the league format of the UEFA Champions League, Rob, and you already want it. We haven't even entered the final stages, and you're already convinced that it's rubbish and we should go back to the knockout format.
They've had a group format for decades, and that was terrible. I don't see making it into a 34-team league is going to make it any less terrible. It's basically a group format of some kind. It's just this one's bigger, and then you get to the knockout stages. Don't know.
I'm going to do mine. So the thing that I would bring back is heavily limited numbers of substitutes, because I think the ability now to do, is it 3 or even 4 bunches of changes and bringing on up to 7 players. Go on, Reece, what's the rule?
I think it's up to 5, but you get 3 stoppages to make the change. So it's 5 out of 7 subs in 3 stoppage breaks, not including half time.
And I think that has ruined football for various reasons. I'll give you a couple of them. Firstly, I think it has got rid of the utility player as a concept. And I really like utility players, someone who say, well, they may not be amazing in any one position, but they can come on and they can do a job in 2 or even 3. And I think I've got a lot of time for those people, the jacks of all trades. The other thing that it has got rid of, the John O'Shea's, as Risa said, or the Scott Bennett's for that matter. The other thing that it has basically got rid of is one of the greatest sights in football, which is an outfield player donning the keeper's jersey after a keeper has been injured or sent off. Because you've always got a substitute goalie on the bench, and you've always got the space to bring them on. And I think that's a shame, because I think one of the greatest things that happens is when your keeper gets sent off and you've used up all your substitutes, or you don't have a keeper on the bench, and an outfield player has to run over, get the keeper's jersey and gloves, and then go and goal. Because then one of two things happen. Either they play terribly and let in a load of goals, so you get a goal fest, which might be good if it's not your team that's affected, or that keeper has an absolute unexpected worldie and keeps a clean sheet, and it's then the stuff of legend. And both of those things are worth seeing. So that is a thing that I would insist on, that you get 1 or 2 subs allowed out of a maximum of 3 from your bench, in order to kind of make the game a bit more interesting. And obviously it also favours clubs who've got bigger budgets and bigger squads and all the rest of it. But yeah, I think that would be fun. The thing that I would keep from modern football is squad numbers, because I was trying to explain to my eldest the other day that when I first started going to watch football, all the players would come out in numbers 1 to 11, and those numbers would change from week to week. And to know who was wearing number 4 that particular week, you would have to buy a programme, listen to the tannoy announcement to check whether the names on the programme tallied up to what it thought it would be, and you'd either have to write it down or remember it. And that sounds mad now to try and say, yeah, that's what we did every week. I mean, I remember going to Spitty Park and always having like a notepad so I could scribble down who was wearing what number, and that's just kind of baffling to the modern ear. Go on, Rob.
Well, actually, you used to get the lineups on the back page of the programme with a blank space next to their names, and then you wrote the number down, and I would bring that back, actually. You know.
We're going to fall out, aren't we? 20 years of beautiful friendship.
At Spitty Park, if you were not in the shed, by the little old lady that was selling Mars bars, they would staple the team sheet to a notice board shortly before kick-off, and you could tick off who was wearing what number that day.
But again, you explain that to someone who's grown up in the modern era. That just sounds baffling. Yeah, if you wanted to know who was playing, you'd have to go to the little old lady selling up to Bovril and write it down. So I think it has made it better that you know each week, right, this player will always wear 14 throughout the entire season, and then when you're watching the game, you're not having to do the mental arithmetic of, oh yeah, no, that person usually wears 2 but today is wearing 5 or whatever. So I think that is progress, and probably something we should celebrate. Right, I'm going to pass the microphone down to the other end of the table, and let's go to Simon, I reckon.
Thanks, Ed. So the thing that I miss about football of old is 3 p.m. kickoffs on a Saturday, and not just that all the fixtures are being played at the same time, but that the half-time entertainment would be listening out for those scores, because you wouldn't have your phone in your pocket. This was before your apps were updating with all the scores, and then at full time you'd get back in the car and turn on the radio and would be learning for the first time all of the other teams' results and what it's meant for your own team. So that's what I miss and would like somehow to bring that back. And then I was trying to think of anything good about modern football, and I was thinking, reflecting on the loss of fanzines, although they still exist, and then thought, of course, there are things like podcasts like this one, which have built up a community and a following and a way of keeping people fully involved in all aspects of the game, and not just who's in the team and how did the team play, but the aspects of the community side of things, and shirts, and all of the things that this podcast has informed people about. So that is at least one good thing about the modern game.
So I'm going to be really controversial and say that I actually wouldn't change modern football. So I can think of a number of things that I liked about old football, about the way it used to be played. The pass back rule to the goalkeeper, that is an improvement. But so the game has evolved to where it is now, and it is now a very different game to what was played in the 80s or 90s. Given all of that, I don't think I'd change anything. I would change the society around football and the way that we still see it, and whenever I get down to Bournemouth, but even when I go to Ringwood, the abuse that is held at the linos and the refs. If we're going to go down that road, I want to express my complete satisfaction with the efforts put in by the referee. I think we need to find a better way of creating a better environment at football. So something that players can enjoy and referees can enjoy. Things that I enjoy about the modern game in England this season. I'm not sure if it's gone on in Wales. Under 7s, under 8s, under 9s are doing kick-ins, mandated kick-ins or dribble-ins, and that's being taken to under 10s next season. I really like that as an option. So in the Spanish Futsal League, yes, a reference to futsal on the pod. Yes, we got there eventually. They've actually now gone the other way, and they're now saying, okay, if you want to, you can take a throw-in, because in futsal it's always kick-ins, which is obviously a bit weird, but only about 20% of the restarts from side now are a throw-in Spanish futsal, so it's not exclusively used. So I would copy that over from the under 7s and say, okay, well actually, why don't you have the option of a kick-in? Yeah, with futsal rules. So that's the one thing I'd see more of.
Very good, very good. Rob, you've had something else pop into your mind. Go on.
I think the Nations League has been an improvement to international fixtures.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're here.
Yeah, exactly. We're here to watch Cyprus against Lithuania. I think it kind of makes the friendly fixtures more relevant. Yeah, semi-competitive, more relevant. And it gets teams that are kind of rated in the same ranking kind of group game time against each other, which is probably more likely to get improvement in their competitiveness rather than just being battered by bigger nations. So yeah, I think the Nations League has been positive.
That is a very, very good shout, actually. Fair play. Right, I'm going to let the last-ish word go to Dino and to Paul. You didn't want to make any suggestions of your own, but what has persuaded you from what you've heard? What's the best one?
I think the one which made me think of something was one Rob said about the Champions League, and it made me think about actually FA Cup replays.
Yes.
Now I really, really love when you get sort of like a big team and you get an away day.
Yeah.
You sort of like hold that team, you get a draw, you fight for a life, have a replay going straight to penalties.
Yeah.
It just feels a little bit cheap. And I remember listening to someone telling me about how in their day you could get to the final of the FA Cup, and if you have, or the semi-final, and if you don't win, they'll have a replay, and that can go on again, and you'll have another game.
Yeah.
So it just makes that competition a little bit less special, I think.
Yeah.
It wasn't a change which benefits everyone.
Yeah. Very, very good shout. Paul, what have you liked the sound of?
I like the sound of bringing back more fanzines and grassroots involvement, as well as memories of listening to football results on grandstand rather than having constant updates on your phone.
Yes, and that's particularly true for the people who sit near me in the Hazel stand, and you know who you are, shouting out the Premier League schools and thus ruining match of the day for me. A special pox upon all of your houses. Well, look, that has been a lot of fun. If you are listening, we would love to hear your suggestions for things you would bring back or things that have made the game better, and perhaps at some point we'll look through your suggestions and feature those on a pod. But right now, from a very mild and sunny Larnaca, all the best, look after yourselves, look after each other, and above all, as always, keep it county.
Show!